In this video, we're going to talk about making loans to 1099 borrowers, how to get loans approved for those borrowers that you might have otherwise missed out on, and also avoid having to send loans for those borrowers into underwriting that are later declined. The reason that there's now so much confusion around the 1099 borrowers is that some of the agencies have now given conditions where 1099 borrowers are not considered to be self-employed. They are effectively treated as though they were W-2 wage earners. And the reason this was done was because some of these borrowers were employed by a single business. They had all the characteristics of a wage earner, but the business had elected to pay them 1099. We're not going to get into the IRS guidelines about whether they should or should not have been paid 1099, but that is the way that they are currently operating. And therefore, by having these folks categorized as self-employed, that was adding an additional risk factor to the underwriting engine. So some of these people that could have otherwise been approved were being denied. Now, on the other side of this coin is that now some 1099 borrowers, if you run them as though they are self-employed, and you receive AUS conditions that allow you to qualify them based on only 1 year of tax returns, if your underwriter later determines that in fact they are not self-employed, you will lose that ability to qualify them based on the 1 year of tax returns, and will have to come up with the second year and qualify them off of the average. So let's talk generally here about the factors that your underwriter will consider before they decide whether or not your borrower who is claiming 1099 is self-employed. The biggest factor is whether they file a Schedule C or any other entity on their tax return where they report this 1099 income. Almost certainly, if they have an entity separate from a Schedule C, they are going to be considered self-employed. But just the filing of the Schedule C by itself is not determinative. What you're going to want to find out is if they write off any expenses on the Schedule C. If they do, how much are those expenses? And what types of expenses are they writing off on the Schedule C? So using Freddie Mac as an example, and I'm not going to get in here on this video to all 5 of the agencies, this is more to instruct you in terms of what questions to ask your borrower and what documentation to get from them before you issue your pre-approval. With Freddie Mac, it's okay if they file a Schedule C, as long as the amount of the expenses is less than 5% of the gross receipts. However, in Q&A, Freddie Mac has given the option to treat these folks as though they're not self-employed if it's just a little more than 5% of the expenses. Could be 6%, Freddie Mac said. They didn't draw a hard line in the sand where they said if the expenses are greater than this percentage of the gross receipts, that they absolutely positively must be categorized as self-employed. In Q&A, they've also given the lender the option to treat the people as though they are self-employed, even if there is no Schedule C. So the most important thing is to find out from your borrower if they're 1099, is there a Schedule C? If so, how much of the expenses? In particular, you want to find out if there are any cost of goods sold expenses, because then that indicates more that your borrower is involved in business because they now are maintaining an inventory of products that they're buying and selling. So I'm Alan Berkovitz. I'm the founder of the Complete 1003 software. We train newer mortgage professionals, and newer can mean up to a year or two in the business, to help them make loans that they might have otherwise been missing out on, and also, more importantly, to prevent them from sending any loans into underwriting that will later die. So if you'd be interested to learn a little bit more about how we do that, this is just one example of the kind of education we give. Our website is The Complete 1003, thecomplete1003.com. If you go to the website, it'll give you a better idea overall of what we do. Again, it's mostly newer mortgage professionals, loan officers, loan officer assistants, and processors, although we do have a number of much more experienced folks that are always open to learning, wanting to find out if there's any ways to make loans that they might have otherwise not quite known about. Some of these folks have been focusing more on a particular agency, and now there may not be enough business just within the agency or agencies they focused on, and they want to learn the tricks of the trade for some of the other agencies. So we'll end this video now, and I'll be happy to talk to you in more detail, any of you that would like to.